Modern radio, and Layron, I'll turn it over to you. And we're real excited to hear all about your inventions.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So how many people in the room or on the computer have been infected by COVID? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of people walked into a room or a restaurant and got your temperature taken? How many have wondered if taking the temperature at a point in time was enough data to track if you were sick with COVID? Right? Okay. So that's what's happening. So our lives have been ultimately turned upside down by COVID, and there's a race to the bottom of all these quick and dirty solutions to solve the issue that don't really solve the issue. Then there's this thing called the Internet of Things. It's a really, really big market. A lot of money, opportunity to be made, and companies are spending billions of dollars to try to solve these issues. But frankly, none of these things really solve the issue and help you get consumer confidence. And that's what Modern Radio does. I'm Layron. I'm the CTO of a company called Modern Radio. And we build plug-and-play IoT solutions that cover the entire ecosystem. We start from the device side where we can collect real-time data. We take that data, we process it, and ultimately we turn it to the cloud and let you make decisions based on doing that. We do a really good job in doing that. In this space, we also focus on things that help you really change around your operation. So look at this picture and look at the bottom. This is a picture of a smart hospital. Well, a hospital, I'm sorry, that's not smart. Things are being done, it's unpredictable, you don't know what's happening. But in this world of COVID, what have we been taught to do? Take a temperature, take a measurement. So imagine if you had the ability to be able to take measurements, make decisions, and do that in a reliable way, you could really transform how you operate, what you can do with that, and help your business operate better. But now, let's look at this challenge, what we're doing. And so I thought about this, and we decided to take one of our scenarios, I'll describe in a second, and determine a use case that will allow for you to build a device that would focus on measuring data in a COVID environment, allow for you to connect this patient information that's very critical, very sensitive, because you're going to make decisions based on this, get it back to the system of record to make a decision, and allow for you to really do something that can save lives. And all in the middle using certainty to make sure that's all secure and it's all done properly. And how's this happening? So, somebody mentioned earlier, IoT. We make devices called these gateways. They connect data, they transmit data, they collect data. They send data to a cloud. But today, even though we control this local network, the data to our cloud, it goes over the open internet. I can't control that, right? Then this data gets over here and makes a decision on it. So you're changing your business, you're making functions, you're telling kids to go home and stay at home because they're sick. And how do you know the data wasn't spoofed in between? And that's where Sertainty comes in to allow us to make that happen. And then going back to this COVID conversation, this chart is probably 2 weeks old now. But right now, because of COVID, our inability to measure temperature, to track social distancing, as many people have died from COVID than died in the entire World War II. So it's a really big issue. So what are we doing about it? Introducing our gateway that collects data and the smart mask. So what's the smart mask? The smart mask is a real device. So I take this device that Humana sent me with no tech on it, and I replace it with an interchangeable sensor that actually can affix to my face. And in real time, this device is able to measure facial temperature, cough detection, if you're actually wearing a mask, and hazardous chemicals in real time. You take that particular device, and you connect it with our routers, and now you deploy this in your school. You deploy it in your restaurant, in your meatpacking plant. And now in real time, wirelessly, you're connecting and getting who's coughing, who's sneezing. You're looking for trends. And now when somebody gets sick, what do you have now? You have contact tracing, all done wirelessly and in real time. The smart mask is empowered by Sertainty because of this. So now imagine this case. This past week in Atlanta, Cherokee County, a school started. The first day, an entire class of 24 kids were actually told to go home and quarantine for 2 weeks because one kid got COVID. Another school actually suspended a kid yesterday because he took a picture that went viral showing the kids in the hallway because he actually posted on social media things that were detrimental to the school. Why are those things happening? There's no confidence in this data. So by leveraging our smart masks, our routers and Sertainty, we can actually encrypt data when it's produced on our devices and when it's transmitted, all in real time, so that when you make this decision to shut something down, to send somebody home, and you lose productivity, you can trust that that data was done for the right reasons. Again, this is not a fluke. Here's some screenshots of this data coming across in real time being encrypted by Sertainty. I have a video here, but I'm not sure how to use the clicker. I can actually play it. But in this video, you can see that the engineer in the office is Marquette, our CEO. He has a valve that has conformal coat, which is the substance that you actually put on top of devices when you're making electronics. And this sensor wirelessly is measuring that conformal coat in real time to tell you that you're actually measuring that particular scenario. So in addition to COVID, where facial temperature in real time constantly is important, post-COVID, when we leave this is the compliance mask. If you guys followed the story a couple of years, about last year or so, at BW3, Buffalo Wild Wings, an employee mixed chemicals together trying to mop the floor, and that combination of chemicals killed the employee. And it was obviously what they were smelling. So this mask has use cases beyond COVID. If you're a medical hospital, and you're dealing with sick patients who have tuberculosis, et cetera, how do you ensure that that nurse is wearing an N95 mask all the time? You don't know. This mask does that for you. And last but not least, in addition to this is the use case we're going forward with as well. So in this picture, this is a kid at a school. Now I'm going to paint a picture for you. So you're a parent and you really want to go to school. Your PTA sponsors buying individual routers and gateways to put in each individual classroom. Your kid walks in now with their smart mask on their face. And as a parent at home, you have your iPhone at your house, and you can in real time determine if your kid is wearing a mask and what their vitals are. And if you watch the telemedicine presentation earlier today, what did the doctor say? It's not about this entire stream of data coming in all the time. It's about these outliers and knowing what happens when things kind of come together. So I'll close with this. With Martin Radio, we build plug-and-play IoT solutions. And for this challenge, we're leveraging Sertainty to ensure that the data that we transfer to our customers to make decisions is something they can be certain about. Now, open the floor to questions.
So I'll start with questions. Fred and I met with Layron yesterday, talked about a lot of different subjects, but one of them was one of the environments I came out of, and Steve Cable, you'll remember this, with EmiCore, the clean rooms that we had, and then also the cold refrigerators where we, basically our products were blood and blood reagents. So you had mentioned, kind of post COVID. So I would think things like clean room and life sciences companies would be a market. Also the refrigeration and be able to handle the cold environments. Could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, today I focused on the smart mask scenario, which is actually an extension of our smart building and air quality solution set. And so two things we're doing there. If you take the sensor off the mask, so if you think about these masks, this is a replaceable sensor that comes off the mask, so the mask is reusable. But one of the pilots we're about to start with local school districts is that we're taking the air quality sensor off the mask, we're putting the pre and post air filters in the HVAC systems. And there you can look at air quality, if the filters are being actually transmitted. And for them, building these real-time dashboards for parents and the consumers to see that this building actually has good air quality is important. Then on top of this sensor, we have an additional sensor, which is an environmental sensor. And so we're doing pilots now with a few large cold chain restaurant chains, where they're using our sensors to monitor the quality of the HVAC system. And then last but not least, other scenarios, I can't mention the organization, but we're actually meeting with the head medical professional for NBA team, where they're looking to take these masks and deploy them across their facilities. Because we look at what's happening with the NBA, they all invest in these rings.
Yeah.
And they'll literally announce a plan, but they're stopping seasons in this ring because they can't trace things. And so all these organizations that are service workers are looking for that. And last but not least, one of the pilots we're looking at today, one of the other issues that was hit really hard was the meat industry. Very concentrated service workers making pork and beef in places along those lines. So a few people in those spaces are looking to buy these sensors so they can actually keep track of their employees as they're working as well.
Question from the judge.
From Alex, what's the battery lifespan of an individual mask?
Good question. So we actually, the consumer version of these sensors have rechargeable batteries, but they'll last a full day. And then also in doing that as well, for the case of the students and parents when there's not connectivity, we added vibration sensors and LED sensors. So imagine your kids in a school, they're not wearing the mask, they take it off. The mask actually knows when it's on your face or not, and so it actually gives these audible alerts to alert you to put it back on. But it's a rechargeable battery that'll last for a full day and get you back home.
Any other questions, judges?
So
And you might have to repeat my question. How long can I reuse the mask?
Sure.
And how do I clean it?
Gotcha, yeah, so the question was how long can we use the mask and how do you clean it? So the mask itself is no different than these cloth masks. There's a whole entire brand of washable masks. So this particular brand we're using has up to 40 washes, and you take out the sensor when you wash the mask. So you'll probably buy a pack of masks and you will leverage the sensor in doing that. That's not a concern.
Okay. Question from Judge Steve. Have you approached the payers about funding this, in particular for high-risk patient populations, i.e. paying for the mask?
We haven't done that yet, although we think it's an opportunity. Our initial approach, we were trying to find scenarios that went direct to consumer to kind of get buzz behind it. So as an example, a lot of you guys are football fans may know one of our investors, Champ Bailey. So Champ is working on a series of masks for UGA that are branded. And so we're looking at scenarios we can actually build consumer brands for football players. And then we also were targeting some of the industries like school, in addition to the service workers. We do think the medical option is a place to go out there, but we haven't gone down that path just yet.
Another question from the Judge Alex. Are there any diagnostic criteria that would be picked up by the mask for asymptomatic or minor symptom infections?
So we're not looking at the mask as being a diagnostic tool, but the scientists in me realize that if you have this data, that's what opportunity becomes. So as we have more and more data, we will be able to leverage data to use machine learning models to see if we can look at trends. That was a story on talk radio this morning around a person who actually was taking their temperature every day using the exact same thermometer, and their temperature wasn't at the level that was required to say you had COVID, but he realized that by using the same thermometer, he had a relatively high temperature, and that spike was different to him. And so by leveraging the same device, the same level of calibration, and looking at these trends, it helps you then to determine if something is an outlier, and I think this is what that offers you to do as well.
Question from Judge Dr. Rank. How do you approach issue that majority of coughs can be allergies, asthma, and in the fall, winter, influenza, and how this could raise flags unnecessarily?
I don't disagree. So the biggest thing I would say here that we're focused on is that direct, constant facial temperature reading, because I think that having just more than that point in time is something that is important. And remember, we have facial temperature, we have alcohol, we have cough, we have if you're wearing it as well. So all of these parameters become things you can take a look at. But I would think for that person that you're describing, as I mentioned in my previous answer, you're looking at what their norm is and what's different for them. So over time, you will train against that person and determine what's not normal for them. So I think this just gives you more data to make more informed decisions.
Okay, can you talk about where the data is stored from Judge Chris?
So we have a cloud. So in the case, again, Sertainty, we pull data from our gateway. There are two scenarios. If it's a customer who has their own clouds, et cetera, we provide an SDK and they can send data to their system of record. If we are controlling the entire ecosystem, the data is stored in our cloud, encrypted at rest, and in transport. And then we provide different SDKs or APIs to leverage it in various line of business applications.
Okay, I think judges, any other questions? Otherwise,
One more, here in the room.
How much does the actual mask cost?
how much does the actual mask cost by Judge Robbins?
Gotcha. There are a few different SKUs, but designer masks outside of, even without technology, or you can find designer masks for $50, $60, ironically. So our goal is to be at the same price point to where it's almost like it's an impulse buy. So we're pricing these masks the $50, $5 range. And then when you buy our various routers and gateways, just like most routers, they're $150 or so. And to put it in perspective, if you were to go and take one of our individual routers and plug it into the wall, if I were to plug it into the wall here, everybody within, on this entire floor, I could probably get every mask in this room with one router. So it's not very expensive at all. And then lastly, the model is that impulse buy on the hardware and the tech, and then a small monitoring fee monthly for the alerts and things that come along with that.
Okay.
So in essence, if I can wear it 40 times and it costs me $50, it's just as cheap as the daily mask that I would toss in the trash that has no.
Without question.
Yeah,
That's
the point of Robin's follow-up was do the break even. You know, does it cost as much to have a reusable, even though it's more expensive than having to put on a disposable one that you have to buy every day? We got less than a minute, and I'll just sew it up with this. that one of my clients in Wisconsin owns cheese factories. They package for Boar's Head. She has 350 employees, and she gets her gowns and hats and everything from Syntex and so forth. They have to replace those every single day. And she, you know, when I told her about what the challengers were doing, she's like, after that challenge, I want these guys up here. I want to know everything about what's going on, because she said all her workers, they have to get there, it's hard, it's difficult, then they have to be tested, and they have to get gowned up. Then on the weekends, they're all having a great time at their parties, then they come back, and it's a mess. It really is. So, great job. Modern radio, they're on. Okay, we're gonna kick right in.